Hello everyone, this is Shiv Prem, a legal intern at LEXIS and Company, and currently pursuing BLLB honors from Central University of South Bihar. So, in the previous session, I had dealt with the topic human rights violations a threat to humanity. In this session, I will be continuing those parts, those remaining parts. So, in the last video, I had dealt with the human rights violations and some articles, and in this video, I will be dealing with a case study where the issue of Kashmir and its response by India. So now let's start the topic with Kashmir's condition. Kashmir is known as the paradise on earth. Kashmir is known to be the crown of India's secular democratic culture. Unfortunately, human rights abuses in Jammu and Kashmir are regular occurrence issues. The violations have badly impacted the livelihood of people, their, their living environments, their health, their access to education, and so on. The violations have affected each and every aspect of life in Kashmir, including the women. They have often been the targets and survivors of violence, suffering from trauma and injury because of the conflict. Some rights groups say more than 1 million people have died since 1989, while the official figures from Indian sources state the estimate number of civilians killed due to the insurgency as above 50,000. According to a scholar, Seema Kaji, the crimes by militants are incomparable to the larger scale abuse by Indian state forces. India accuses the Pakistan army and its state-sponsored terrorist outfits for abusing human rights in Jammu and Kashmir by violating the ceasefire and continuing to kill Kashmiri civilians, a claim rejected by Pakistan, which blames the Indian army for the violation of line of control. Diplomatic cables obtained by WikiLeaks revealed that the Red Cross and had brief, briefed US officials in Delhi in 2005 about the use of torture from 2002 to 2004 by security forces against hundreds of detainees suspected of being connected to or having information about the militants. In a 1993 report, Human Rights Watch stated that Indian security forces assaulted civilians during search operations, tortured and summarily executed detainees in custody, and murdered civilians in reprisal attacks. According to the report, militants had also targeted civilians, but to a lesser extent than security forces. Rape was regularly used as a means to punish and humiliate communities. Scholar Seema Kadi says it is used as a weapon of war by the state against the population. A 2010 US State Department report stated that the Indian Army in Jammu and Kashmir had carried out extrajudicial killings of civilians and suspected insurgents. The report also described the killings and abuse being carried out by the insurgents and separatists. In 2010, 2010, statistics presented to the Indian government's Cabinet Committee on Security showed that for the first time since 1980s, the number of civilian deaths attributed to the Indian forces was higher than those attributed to insurgents' actions. The Indian Army claims that 97% of the reports about the human rights abuse has been found to be fake or motivated based on the investigation performed by the Army. However, a report by the US State Department said that Indian authorities use Armed Forces Special Power Acts to avoid holding its security forces responsible for the deaths of civilians in Jammu and Kashmir. Militant violence led by the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front against 219, 219 Pandits, according to Jammu Kashmir government sources, has led to the migration several hundred thousands of Kashmiri Hindu Pandits, who before their exodus comprised as estimated 10 to 15% of the Kashmir Valley's population. According to Asia Watch, the militant organizations forced the Hindus residing in the Kashmir Valley to flee and become refugees in Delhi and Jammu. The chief preparators were the Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front and the Hizbul Mujahideen. Migration continued until a very vast majority of the Kashmiri Pandits were evicted out of the valley and having suffered many acts of violence, including sexual assault on women, arson, torture, and extortion of property. Some of the separatist leaders in Kashmir reject these allegations. The Indian government is attempting to reinstate the displaced Pandits in Kashmir. According to J&K government, an amount of rupees 71.95 crore was spent in providing relief and other facilities in Kashmiris migrants living in Jammu and other parts. In 2007, 2007-8, rupees 70.33 crore. In 2008-9, 68.59 crore, and in 2009 up to January 2010, the remnants of Kashmiri Pandits have been living in Jammu, but most of them believe that until the violence cases, returning to Kashmir is not an opinion. This paper will analyze the human rights violence in Kashmir in 2017. The year 2017 was the most violent year in Kashmir since the last decade. Every type of human rights violations took place in Kashmir. Following are some human rights abuses in Jammu Kashmir in the year 2017. Category of people killing: militants was 217, civilians were 108, and armed forces were 125. So, international humanitarian law has been enacted to preserve humanity in all circumstances, even during conflicts. Such law creates area of peace in the midst of conflict, imposes the principle of a common humanity, and calls for dialogue. It rules out unlimited force or total war and seeks to limit the use of violence in the hope of maintaining the necessary conditions for a return to peace. Various international committees are in place to monitor compliance with human rights standards and report any violations. When breaches do occur, they are brought to the attention of international tribunals or tried in an international court or war crimes tribunal. But conflicts sometimes progress beyond the state at which international law can help. As the number of victims grows and more individuals are taken prisoner, tortured, and or executed, it becomes more difficult to resort to the legal path. There is much disagreement about when and to what extent outside countries can engage in humanitarian intervention. More specifically, there is a debate about the efficacy of using military force to protect human rights of individuals in other nations. The sort of debate stems largely from a tension between the state's sovereignty and the rights of the individual. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Thank you. And please do like and subscribe the channel.